Hi and welcome to another Grumpy video. About a week ago I did a video about TV licensing, or Capita as they prefer not to be called. After that I started getting recommendations from YouTube about videos other people had done that were related to the subject, and I've been watching quite a few of those over the past week. Being a nosy type, I've looked at some of the comments below the videos and noticed that apart from the expected I agree or I don't agree responses, there were people asking questions, some with genuine curiosity and some out of anger towards those that they think are taking something for nothing that they are paying for. This got me thinking. As a bit of a crazy old eccentric, most people I know are used to me doing things that aren't typical of the majority. So the fact that I don't watch TV isn't really that much of a shock to anybody who knows me. But it is unusual enough for many people for them to ask questions, and I thought I'd do a video on some of those. Some of the questions are questions people have asked me, and some are questions I've heard asked of other people, or seen. Question 1. So aren't you legal? A few people I know have asked me this, and I know some people who love telling me that I'm not legal. But in fairness, a lot of this is just banter rather than truly having a go. Most people really don't care what I'm not doing behind closed doors. Although I said I don't watch TV, this often translates itself in people's minds to admitting that you do watch television but just don't pay for it. People so often can't get their head round the fact that somebody is just not interested in television. But the fact is, I am legal because there's no legal requirement to buy a licence to not watch television. The thing is, this is the favourite line of TVL/Capita and has developed a mimetic popularity in members of the public who then use it at each other. Question 2. You can afford a 60-inch plasma telly, why can't you afford a TV licence? I don't have a 60-inch plasma TV. I do have some pretty thick books though, but even they're not 60 inches. Question 3. Why should I pay if you don't? Well, that depends. Are you watching live television or catch up via the iPlayer? If you are, then that's why you need to pay for a TV licence. I'm not, and that's why I don't have one. Question 4. BBC don't have adverts. Do you want them to ruin programmes with adverts because people like you won't buy a licence? There are a few responses to this. The most direct answer would be, sorry but I really don't care. How will it affect me if a channel I never watch adds or even removes something from its broadcast? I won't know, will I, because I won't see it. Another response could be that BBC content does include advertising. Although there aren't any advertisements on their main channel or iPlayer as far as I know, through sub-companies the BBC owns channels that do include adverts. Incidentally, they also sell BBC content overseas, so companies who sometimes sell access to this content back to us. So for instance, if you watch a BBC show on Netflix and also have a TV licence, technically you've paid for it twice. Question 5. Don't you need a licence if you have the ability to stream live, regardless of whether you do? I.e. anybody with the internet can stream live, so anybody with the internet needs a TV licence. Now this is a comment I've heard on videos of Goon Visits, where the Goon tries to convince whichever householder has had the misfortune to open the door to them that the fact that they have an internet connection means that they have equipment to receive a live broadcast online, regardless of whether they actually do. Therefore, they automatically need a licence. I don't know for certain if they are deliberately trying to mislead with this or whether some of them are really uninformed on the subject. Quite possibly a mixture of both, but they will of course cling to anything that might persuade you, because persuading you means money in their pocket. However, if you look on TV Licensing's own website, it states you don't need a TV licence if you only use these services to watch demand or catch-up programmes, except if you're watching BBC programmes on iPlayer. You can't watch catch-up TV without internet access. Therefore, internet access alone is not grounds for needing a licence. It's that simple. They said it themselves. Unfortunately, they forgot to tell Capita. Question 6. Why should I have to pay more because people like you won't buy a licence? Now, assuming my refusal to buy a licence directly affects the cost of your licence, that's just how supply and demand works. If there aren't a lot of buyers, the price goes up. Not that I really believe that the cost would go down if every household in the UK that doesn't currently have a licence went out and bought one overnight. But even if that were true, why do you expect people not using the service you use, no matter how much you may value it, to fund it to save you money? You aren't driving the price down on my favourite things if you don't want or use them, so why do you expect me to do it for you? Question 7. If you don't have a TV, what is your furniture pointing at? Now, I love this question, although sadly it wasn't asked of me. Years ago, when I still had a television, I knew this woman who didn't have one, and I used to ask her questions about it, not because I wanted to start a fight about it or anything, but because I was genuinely interested. I was still in the process of wondering if I could give up the television and not miss it, and she was somebody who was already doing that. So I was interested in whether she missed it, what she did instead, that kind of thing. And she told me that one day she'd mentioned it at work, and one of her co-workers had asked her what her furniture pointed at if she didn't have a television. I just found this hilarious. I can't remember what reply she'd given, but I told her she should have said, oh, we arranged it in conversational groupings. I almost wished I could be asked that question just so I could give that reply, because that's what I've done with my furniture. I'm kidding, obviously I don't have furniture and I hate conversation. Question 8. How do you cope without Strictly, Big Brother, I'm a Celebrity, Britain's Got Talent, X Factor, etc.? I manage to. I just manage to. Question 9. What do you have to hide? So this question is mostly directed at people confronted by goons wanting to know why their victims won't let them in to inspect their equipment, whether the equipment is real or imagined by Capita. This is a very manipulative question, which the police also love to ask, and it has been adopted by people over the years who buy into the if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear mindset. This often leads to blustering replies, because obviously even if you did have something to hide, you're not going to say that you've got something to hide, because if you wanted people to know what you were hiding, you wouldn't be hiding it, would you? Generally it's assumed that people hide things that aren't acceptable, lawful, legal, etc. So if you are hiding something, you must be doing something that is against the rules, law, etc. It's a deeply unpleasant accusatory tactic, used to try and shame you into doing something that you don't want to do, and you're often within your rights not to do. My response, depending on my mood, would either be, what do you have to plant? Or if I'm feeling less antagonistic, I'd say, everything. It's called a private life for a reason. Sadly, I did read a response to this question by somebody posting a comment online, and for the life of me I can't remember what it was now, but it was really good. So good that I can't remember it, but yeah, it was good. It was basically a better version of my second, less antagonistic response. Question 10. Why did my auntie's sister's hairdresser's gerbil's postman's cousin get a fine and or go to jail when she was only watching DVDs if you only need a licence for live broadcasts? I'm sure everybody who doesn't have a TV or a licence has encountered a variant of this question at some point, using second, third, fourth or 10th hand anecdotal evidence to convince you that you are wrong and you really do need a licence. So obviously the fact that it's anecdotal immediately renders any answer unnecessary, but let's just answer it anyway. To start with, you'd have to point out that usually not enough information is contained within the question to answer it with any chance of being accurate. If you didn't witness this for yourself and are only hearing it second, third, 10th hand, etc., it's impossible to be certain of the veracity of what you're being told. And this does not necessarily mean that you've been lied to either. The person asking the question could be genuinely concerned that you're going to get into trouble or receive a fine, go to jail or whatever, but they may have been misinformed, or details that would explain why this happened may have been omitted, either intentionally because the original source of the anecdote didn't know it was relevant, or because they deliberately withheld it. But the person telling you may not know that. You know, it could be so many things, which is why these kinds of questions are very difficult to deal with sensitively, assuming you like the person asking and don't want to upset them or accuse of something that they may not be doing. But if we assume that the person referred to was fined or jailed, despite genuinely doing nothing wrong, this is generally because they were tricked into admitting to something they hadn't done and then taken to court. Then they received a fine, maybe unexpectedly, because they didn't realise they'd been tricked into admitting to something they hadn't done. In the case of being jailed, this would be a result of not paying a fine, possibly because they objected to being fined for something that they hadn't actually done, and instead of appealing, they decided to simply refuse to pay the fine. Obviously, this is only one possible scenario, and as I said, without knowing the full story, it's impossible to say for sure, but this is one suggestion of a fairly common scenario. So that's 10 questions a legally licence-free person may be asked, and my version of the responses I would give. These, of course, are mainly responses I would give to people who are curious, rather than to TVLs or Capita goons, because, of course, some people ask out of simple, non-malicious curiosity, so I'm not going to bite their heads off. Unless they deserve it. I've had so many questions I wanted to add to this, but I've trimmed it down to the 10 most common or particular favourites of mine. Despite how it may seem, I usually try to keep my videos to a 5-minute length. Clearly I don't succeed at this most of the time, but that's why I've only put 10 questions in this video. There are so many I could have added, but maybe I'll save them for another time. So as always, well done if you made it this far, and thank you for watching. Bye!